Welcome to Simplegetics, apologetics for the everyday Christian. Simplegetics is where theology's complexities become accessible. Unfolding the pages of Scripture, we impart hope, transform lives, and inspire real change. Journey with us with Simplegetics. Have you ever considered the possibility of not recognizing someone you know, someone you've spent years with in a crucial moment? It's a puzzling thought, isn't it? But believe it or not, it happens more often than you'd think. And sometimes it can occur when it's most critical. Imagine being with someone day in, day out. You've shared meals together, exchanged stories, and have been through thick and thin. You've seen their highs and lows and have come to know them intimately. But then, in a moment of great importance, you fail to recognize them. Sounds strange, doesn't it? But it's a reality that can happen to anyone, even the most devoted among us. Now let's take this concept and place it in a different context, one that's steeped in history and faith. Picture yourself as an apostle of Jesus. You've walked with him, learned from him, and have witnessed his miracles firsthand. He's been a constant presence in your life, a guiding light. And yet, when he arose from the dead like he said he would, you didn't believe it. You didn't recognize him. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? This is the paradox that we're going to explore today. It's a story that comes straight from the last chapters of Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and the final 2 chapters of John in the King James Bible. It's a tale that poses a question about recognition, faith, and belief. As we delve into this narrative, we'll examine why the apostles, who had been so close to Jesus, failed to recognize him after his resurrection. We'll explore the circumstances that led to this unexpected turn of events, and what it can teach us about our own faith and recognition of Jesus in our lives. What if I told you this isn't just a hypothetical question, but a reality that happened to the apostles of Jesus? Join us as we journey through this intriguing story, and perhaps uncover some truths about our own faith and recognition along the way. Imagine being told that a loved one who you saw die is alive again. Would you believe it? Let's step into the sandals of the apostles for a moment. These were men who had walked side by side with Jesus, witnessed his miracles, and hung on to every word of his teachings. Yet when they heard the news of his resurrection, they were gripped by disbelief. It's a human reaction, isn't it? To question what seems impossible, to doubt the unbelievable. The apostles' disbelief wasn't just a denial of the miraculous. It was a conflict within their hearts, a struggle between what they wanted to believe and what their human minds could comprehend. They had seen Jesus die. They had mourned his loss. And now they were being told that he was alive. It was a claim so extraordinary, so outside the realm of their understanding, that they couldn't easily accept it. Their disbelief wasn't a sign of weak faith. No, it was a testament to their humanity. It was a reflection of their struggle to reconcile the physical reality they knew with the spiritual reality they were being asked to embrace. It was a struggle we all face when confronted with the divine, the miraculous, the extraordinary. Fear played its part too. The apostles were afraid of being ridiculed, persecuted, or worse for believing something so seemingly preposterous. Fear can be a powerful deterrent to belief. It can cloud our judgment, shackle our faith, and muffle the whisperings of our hearts. Just like the apostles, we too are often faced with moments of disbelief, moments when our faith is tested, when the unbelievable happens, when we must choose between the comfort of what we know and the uncertainty of what we don't. So we stand in the echo of the apostles' disbelief, understanding their doubt, their confusion, their fear. Yet we also stand in the light of what we know now, that their disbelief was the prelude to one of the greatest revelations of all time. But what if the unbelievable is the truth? Fear, it's an emotion that can paralyze us, keep us locked in both physically and mentally. But what happens when we push through it? Imagine the apostles, those brave souls who followed Jesus during his earthly ministry. They had heard his teachings, witnessed his miracles, and yet, when he rose from the dead as he had promised, they were seized by a crippling fear. They barricaded themselves in a room, afraid of the leaders who had crucified their master. They were locked in by fear, literally and metaphorically. But fear, as potent as it may be, is not a permanent state. It's a challenge, a battle to be fought and won. The apostles, in their fear, might have forgotten for a moment the powerful words of Jesus. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. So here's the question for us. How often do we let our fears lock us in? How often do we allow the dread of the unknown, the anxiety of failure, or the fear of rejection to keep us bound up and inactive? And yet, we have this promise from Jesus, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. Facing our fears may not be easy, but it's not impossible. Like the apostles, we too can push through the fear. We too can stand firm in our faith, knowing that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. The apostles eventually emerged from their locked room, their fear replaced with a newfound courage and a burning desire to spread the word of Jesus. They didn't let their initial setback hold them back, and neither should we. For we know that all things work together for good for those who love Jesus. Fear is a hurdle, but one that can be overcome. The apostles did it, and so can we. Let's not let fear lock us in. Instead, let's unlock the door, step out, and face the world with faith, courage, and the assurance of Jesus' promise. Sometimes the most profound lessons are learned in the most unexpected ways. Picture this: 2 disciples trudging along the dusty road to Emmaus, hearts heavy with the recent events of Jesus' crucifixion. They were engaged in a deep conversation about all that had transpired. Suddenly, a stranger joins them. Unbeknownst to them, this stranger is Jesus, resurrected in the very flesh. Yet they don't recognize him. As they walk, this stranger, this Jesus, begins to teach them, opening their minds to the scriptures, explaining everything concerning himself. Strangely enough, even as they learn from him, his identity remains a mystery to them. It's a paradox, isn't it? They follow his teachings, hang on to his every word, and yet they fail to see him for who he truly is. This story serves as a powerful reminder for all of us. Often we find ourselves walking our own roads to Emmaus. We journey through life, facing trials and tribulations, and sometimes we're so caught up in our own narratives that we fail to recognize the wisdom that's right in front of us. We fail to see Jesus in our midst. The disciples on the road to Emmaus eventually recognized Jesus, but only after they invited him to stay with them, and he broke bread with them. It was in the simple everyday act of sharing a meal that their eyes were opened. Perhaps this is where the lesson lies for us. In the hustle and bustle of life, we must remember to pause, to invite wisdom into our lives, to break bread with knowledge, and to open our hearts and minds to the possibility of learning from unexpected sources. It's not always about the grand gestures or the earth-shattering revelations. Sometimes it's about the quiet moments, the simple acts, and the willingness to learn and grow. So as we journey on our own roads to Emmaus, let's remember to be open. Let's remember to invite wisdom in, to break bread with it, to learn from it. And most importantly, let's remember to recognize it when it's right in front of us. Wisdom is everywhere, if only we recognize it. Recognizing Jesus in our lives is more than just a belief, it's a way of living. It's about understanding that his presence is not confined to the pages of the Bible or the walls of a church. It's about seeing him in the everyday and the ordinary and the extraordinary alike. Consider the apostles. They walked with Jesus, learned from him. Yet, when he rose from the dead as he said he would, they struggled to believe. It wasn't a lack of faith, but rather a failure to recognize the enormity of his promise. Today, we too are called to believe in his promises, even when they seem beyond our comprehension. Then there were the disciples on the road to Emmaus. They conversed with Jesus, learned from him, yet failed to recognize him. It wasn't until he broke bread with them that their eyes were opened. It shows us that Jesus can be found in the most unexpected places, in the most ordinary actions. We need only to open our eyes and hearts to his presence. The apostles, once locked in fear, found the courage to push past their apprehensions, drawing strength from their faith in Jesus. They stepped out, knowing that they could do all things through Christ who strengthened them. We too can find this strength. We too can push past our fears, our doubts, and our limits, knowing that we are not alone. Recognizing Jesus in our lives is about understanding that setbacks are not setbacks at all, but stepping stones. It's about knowing that all things work for good. For those who love Jesus, it's about realizing that no matter the circumstance, we are never alone, never without hope, never without faith. Recognizing Jesus in our lives is about embracing the unbelievable, pushing past fear and opening ourselves to wisdom. It's about living a life filled with hope and faith, no matter the circumstance.